Welcome to the SJ Child Show. This episode is sponsored by Water and Body Basics. Visit 3440 South, 5600 West, West Valley City, Utah. Mention SJ Childs today.
And welcome to the SJ Childs Show. I'm your host, SJ Childs, and today my guest is Michael Glassford. He's an attorney in Utah, although he is available online everywhere. So please welcome Michael. Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I am happy to talk about some programs and services that you offer. I should say services more than programs. Because I think that they're really important topics that are overlooked, not widely not known about, but just overlooked and maybe not prioritized as much as they should be for families. So let me ask you, what got you into this, and introduce yourself and your business?
Okay. Well, it's a loaded question to ask what got me into it, because it was an experience just like anyone else. I was a third-year law student, and I wasn't excited about staying around law school for that last year. So I bought a house 4 hours away from law school, and I was commuting back and forth for that last little semester. And we had just bought 100-year-old home in Missouri, and had just bought my first washer and dryer in Columbia, Missouri. And driving home from that experience, because we just bought our first major appliance, and driving east on I-70, and we hit one of those microburst storms, where it's like a cartoon. You could stick your arm out and it's not raining, but it's raining on you. And it caused us to hydroplane. And we went across the 70 grass median and hit a Chevy S10 on, head on, caused like a 5-10 car pileup. I don't remember any of it. My last thought was, oh, beep. And then I woke up in the hospital. And when I woke up I was actually in the ambulance, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if my wife was alive. I didn't know if my 9-month-old son was alive. I'm asking, and they don't know because they're in different ambulances. And I just remember that fear just sitting on my chest. Everything was on pause. Like, I don't even know if I was going to live. I didn't know what was going on. And cut to the chase, we weren't ready. We had nothing in place. Had I and my wife died, my son would have been a ward of the state. We just weren't ready. And a lot of miracles happened that day, and a lot of good things happened that day. And unfortunately, there was no tragedy. But
Good.
that was the framing for me in my law practice to say, you know what, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And what are we doing? What can we do to be ready? So, I mean, that's kind of why estate planning for me. I'm a storyteller. I got this castle behind me. I love Scotland. I've written some books, and both in the fantasy realm and in the professional realm, which could be arguably fantasy too. And story is very important to me, and really estate planning is not because you have a southern plantation. It's not because you have a lot of money. It's because you have a story, and your story matters, and what you're doing to protect, preserve, and grow that story ties into what I do as an estate planning attorney to help you grow that piece of your life.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so glad that you guys are all okay. And wow, that's scary to be in that kind of a situation, because you just don't know. And it does change your perspective on how to move forward in whatever you feel is the more positive or growing way to do so, huh?
Yeah, when they say your life flashes before your eyes, well, yeah, it does. And sitting in the hospital the next day, and this country bumpkin coming into the room, and he's like, "Are you Michael?" Yes. Well, I just had to meet you. I'm like, "Why is that?" He's like, "Well, I'm the jaws of life operator that pulled you out of the vehicle, and I've never pulled one live body out of a car that bad, let alone 3. So I just
Wow.
had to meet you and ask you how you're so lucky."
That's amazing. And I bet so inspiring, now for you moving forward to just tell people, hey, these things can happen in a moment. There's no planning for that. There's no planning for accidents except for what you're doing is exactly planning for accidents or things like that to happen.
Well, you look at it, the tragedy is the injury, or the tragedy is the death. And we can't foresee that. We can't call that. It's just going to come. The insult to injury is what happens after if we're not ready. Finding your family in a court battle. If my wife and I would have passed away, there could have been a court battle between my parents and her parents over my son.
Yeah.
Because, they both had equal standing. There could have been, lots of different challenges that we introduce ourselves because we weren't ready.
Yeah. Unforeseeable things that now you can prepare for in a matter of ways. So tell us about those types of, where should someone start? Let's go there. Where should someone start? If I don't have a will or, a trust or anything, and what do I look for when I want to find out how to get one?
Okay. So first, it's a mindset shift. We want to start thinking a little bit differently. There's a lot of reasons why we don't start. I've heard them all, but some really valid reasons are, I don't think I have enough to plan. I'm not rich, or it's too expensive to plan. But the kicker is, it's about death, and I don't want to think about it. And so that's why I really lead with story, because I don't want to plan your death. We're not Vikings. We're not Klingons. We don't want to die well. Well, maybe you do. You want to live well. It's your life. It's your story. Make it a good one is my mantra. And we want to, I'm a big nerd. Obviously I have a castle behind me. If I could have a Star Trek picture, I'd have that, but copyright law. But I sum it up in a Star Trek analogy that, if you talk to a Trekkie, I ask them who their favorite character is, they'll throw out Picard or Data or Deanna Troi, whoever. My favorite is the Shield, because without the Shield, there's no show. They fly into space and they suffocate. No oxygen. Or the Klingons shoot at them and they die. What I do is I create shields for families so they can explore their own space. We make it work and give them the confidence to go do that more risky thing, to go, to Scotland and play on that castle, to do more in your life than what you would have done before because you didn't have that confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. What about financially? I mean, is there a good place to start? Maybe setting aside, $25 easy enough for some people, right? To put into savings. Like, people should just need to start somewhere, right? And just take baby steps to get there. And like you said, create that mind shift.
Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm not the only answer. We need to talk to financial advisors and insurance agents and attorneys, and we each bring a different component. But I like to call this the vehicle to wealth. We all have this mindset that I'll do that when I'm wealthy, when I arrive, when I'm there. And I propose that you will never arrive, you'll never be wealthy, and you'll never get there unless you have that vehicle now. So you start saving now, you have an estate plan now, you have your life insurance now, and then all of a sudden, like with the estate plan, I compare it a lot to a vehicle. You have that vessel to start putting wealth into, and then all of a sudden you start accumulating things that you never thought possible because you built somewhere to put it. So it's just, I like to call it the vehicle to wealth. And so starting by educating yourself, starting by talking, creating that team of professionals around you. Most of the professionals don't charge to talk. They'll gladly give you an education. I will. I always give, whatever it takes to get someone comfortable in what they need to do. But starting with a will, one of the biggest barriers that I have with a lot of clients is, well, it's just too expensive. Right? And I get that. I understand that. But I take that excuse away because I make my products, at least the entry products, super inexpensive. So you'll pay more for a PS whatever number we're on 17 than you might for a will or a full-blown trust.
Yeah. And the safety your family will have in it is much more than an electronic that could get spilled water or soda on and then be fried in a second, right? There's $750 down the drain.
That's the
And
lucky family. The unlucky family is the one that it plays for years and years and fries for years.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm one of those. Yeah.
I have a different perspective on those things. Right?
Isn't that so funny? I don't know if it was just my mindset growing up or something, very off topic, but yeah, I was never into video games. It's been like a hard 17 years, 20 years that I've, dated and been married, that I've had to just kind of readjust my thinking. And I still don't enjoy them. Like, I don't want to go play them, but I will stop to watch or ask questions and be engaged so that I'm not completely
not a bad thing, but just like anything, too much is too much. And so
yeah, that's
but
for
getting
sure.
back to starting, I really believe that those two barriers, the expense barrier and the I don't want to think about it because I'm dealing with mortality barrier. It's just that's why above my head I have the My Will Kit. It's just something very simple. It's a very simple will that I wrote for you to download and get started somewhere. And this thing's only $49, and so you can start tonight protecting your family. And it's wills are there's pros and cons to wills, but and we'll talk about it, but it's somewhere to start. And along with the My Will Kit, there's an estate plan guide that you can download. You can start putting information together, because really that's half the game is putting everything together, thinking about it, taking an action step, and then stepping out into a new arena.
Yeah. And, I bet another probably something you come up with is age. People probably think, oh, I don't need to do that since I'm not over so age. But like you said, you're not a senior by any means. And you saw your life, come before your eyes and knew that you weren't prepared, or possibly you were, I don't know, but it sounds like that's something that also maybe shouldn't be an excuse.
Yeah. I was 26, 27 when that happened. And right now I'm dealing with a 30-year-old that was walking down the street, single guy, top of life, had a home, had a car, had some investment accounts, hit by a car, passed away on the scene. And what do? He has nothing in place. His parents are just a wreck because they lost their son, but now they have to deal with his house and his car and his bank accounts and identify all the insurance and things. And he had an estranged father that was pretty much a donor to his biology, but he'd never met him. But because there's no will, the state of Utah has a will for him. And that father, who's never met him, never paid child support, never done anything for him in his life, stands to take half.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's
and I'm sure he's not upset about that either, having
not
taken
upset, but
non-responsibility.
Like, I spent my whole, and I've lost my son. Let's not forget that. But I spent my whole life doing this on my own, and now this fella gets to take half. That's just not right. But that's what the state's will says.
Wow.
And a lot of people have that misconception. You have an estate plan. Whether or not you have an estate plan, you have one. Well, it's just whether you chose it or whether the state chose it for you. And that's a big issue, because when I speak in public, I always say, raise your hand if you trust the government. And no one ever raises their hand. I'm always really disappointed. They're like, raise your hand if you don't have a will. And then like half the room raises their hand. I'm like, oh, well, you do trust the government. Good job. I'm really proud. My faith is restored.
Because they're trusting the government to take over all of their securities and everything after the fact, if anything were to happen. No, I agree that I don't think I'm too fond of that option either. So
it comes in phases too, because a will is taking control back from the government in saying who gets what. But it's still in the government arena. You still have to go to court to exercise the will. And so that's like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. He's so excited to get that golden ticket. Well, the will is the government's golden ticket to your last party. You're guaranteeing them a spot, front row. And oh, by the way, would you MC it too? It's so a will is good, but it's still not the best plan to have things in order.
No, and that would probably be where the estate planning comes in and probably takes hold of a lot more specifics.
Well, that's where you hear the word trust.
Yeah.
We created trust, and now there's a plan in place that we don't need a judge to exercise the will or the non-will. We don't need the government to oversee or be intrusive in any way, because we've created a legal entity that does all of that. And so we've actually completely negated the reason for probate, for court. It's just not needed. And that's a lot of where the tragedy falls, that we can avoid all those situations, and we just don't know enough to know that we can.
Yes, exactly. And that's why we need to be educating more freely, talking more freely about these topics, because families need to know where to get the resources, how to get the resources, and why to get the resources. And so I appreciate that part of you educating. I wanted to talk more on the trust, because as you know, I have a son with autism, and a lot of my listeners and viewers are also special needs families. Let's talk about regular trusts and special needs trusts.
Okay. So like that little bit of an intro there, that a trust is an entity that can own property. So Michael passes his home into the trust. Michael doesn't own a home. And so the trust does. Michael now I was the grantor. I granted my property to it. Now I'm the trustee. We hear that language a lot. That's really just a property manager. Remember when you used to rent and the person would knock on the door and say, it's rent's due? They were the property manager. They may or may not have owned the apartment, but that was their job. So your job now is to be the property manager of your old property for the trust. That takes 10 seconds to get your mind around. And then you're also the beneficiary. You get to use that property. And you can buy and sell and add and subtract. And that doesn't stop you from having a trust, but it's just owned by the trust. And a few immediate advantages there is, I'm a sole proprietor. I don't have any employees. I do have an LLC, but the LLC only protects me from the stupid actions of others. My stupid actions are not limited. I'm still on the line, right?
Yeah.
And so if Michael creates a problem in his business, then Michael gets sued, and okay, well, how are they going to get that paid? And I'm going to have to pay it. That's up to me. But they can't come and get my house because I don't have a house. The trust does. I don't have a car. The trust does. So there's a first line of defense for a solo entrepreneur that isn't necessarily there in a regular LLC. You just start creating, shields and asset protection around some of this stuff that you can extend now. Like you mentioned, children with autism or special needs in general. You can start creating funds and resources for them that are protected even more so than what I can protect of my own house. So those funds and resources are there when they need them, because, again, no one wants to talk about their mortality. No one wants to think, okay, well, my 5-year-old son who has special needs is going to grow up to be 55, and those needs are going to increase, not decrease. He may never be able to do other, like what other kids do or other adults do. How am I going to provide for that when I'm, if he's 7 and I'm 50, now you're 80 and they're 50, can you still provide that same quality of care? Maybe not. Maybe you're breaking down. You definitely want to, but you put something like a trust into place, and now you can.
That's amazing. And so important, because I think that families, like I said, sometimes don't know what resources are out there. And I think that when you are able to, get a trust for your child that has special needs, to, number one, it does have some taxation easements. I guess I could say I'm not, not a tax person in any way, but there are a lot of good things that you can use the trust for. And a lot of special needs parents don't know that, just that they just don't know the information at all, and that they could use those types of things to help put, like you said, some money and things into place that they can also get the services they need. And that is so important.
Yeah, and the services that you would provide. Before the show, we were talking a little bit about that, and I had a situation where it was a 50-year-old special needs person, and their whole life, their mom had made their peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Peanut butter on one piece of bread, jelly on the other piece of bread, and then it had to be stacked and cut. If you ever folded that piece of bread, that's just unacceptable, right? And that's the way that they did it for so long. So how do you make sure that something so simple as that continues when the caregiver isn't you?
Yeah.
We can incentivize something like that in the trust. We can make sure even that particular kind of care continues, so that when you can't do the job anymore because it's just physically impossible, or you're gone, that job can continue for that your child who is no longer a minor.
Yeah, that's so important. And it's just really life kind of gives you hope for the future, gives you hope for parents that feel hopeless going into a lifespan of not knowing what the future is going to hold with you and your child. Not that your lifespan anyways. But yeah, I think that there's an extra added element of fear there sometimes with special needs families. And I think that this is wonderful information to have.
There's a lot of control.
Yeah.
We can never be in control of everything.
Yeah.
But to have degrees of control does bring comfort and does bring a certain clarity to life. And we just never know what's going to come down the road. I had a friend that I grew up with. She was young and vivacious, and I was doing her parents' trust, and they wanted to give her a house. And that was really cool because when she was 30, she was in a car accident and she lost her sight. She's blind now.
Oh, wow.
And they just wanted to give her that house because they felt like that was the right thing to do. But we talked through that, and giving her that house, putting that house in her name on her balance sheet, actually would have messed up her disability income.
Yes.
And so instead of messing all that up, we put the house in the trust for her benefit for her lifetime. She'll never own the house, but she will never be without a house.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the kind of control that we can use. And even though we never saw that coming, because that trust was already set up, we could make that change in the trust to accommodate for that situation that occurred down the road.
Yeah. And that's really great because that's so much responsibility that would then have been on her shoulders to, property taxes. And like you said, having her disability or her, services changed because of that, it would have been devastating. Most definitely. So there's a lot of great things we can do with a little extra planning. The 6 P's, I won't repeat them all so that I don't make any swears on the video, but my dad was in the military and I know all about those P's, people. So get yours in order.
Right.
And everybody can see where your stuff is at, but tell us where we can find you if we want to reach out to talk more about this.
Okay, so my will kit is an introductory thing, but if you want to come and see a lot of videos, a lot of education, that's www.legallifeplan.com. And it's another way to say trust or estate planning, but it's your legal life plan. And really that's how I see it. We really want to create that financial daily diet of having that system in place, so we can live better, we can do more, and we can stress less.
Yeah, I like that.
Stress just makes you fat. We don't need stress.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for helping educate my viewers and listeners, as well as, maybe getting someone the idea of where they need to start. Change your mindset, get planning now. Don't let tragedy happen before you have your family set up for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We'll certainly be in touch.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Michael. Talk to you soon.
Bye.